If you want to make lush chords without knowing any music theory, this video is for you. So hello and welcome to BusyWorksBeats.com. I need you guys to smash that like button to extend that S. If you don't know me, I'm Game from BusyWorksBeats.com. We've trained over 1 million producers around the world. Some have gone to work with Drake, Kanye West, Post Malone, Ariana Grande, French Montana, Young Thug, Polo G, Trippie Redd, Lil Baby, J. Cole, Kendrick Lamar, long list of other folks. In this video, I'm going to show you how to create chords with numbers. So if you can count, you can follow along. We're going to go from beginner to advanced to beginner again. All right, guys. So let's go into FL Studio. Let's go to the channel rack. We're going to open up a plugin here and just right click, go to piano roll. Let me just describe the fundamental problem we have as music producers on the computer is that when you're playing chords this way with a keyboard, you're looking straight at the keyboard. Okay, now when you're playing notes in the FL Studio piano roll, you're producing sideways. It's a very different way of producing. Okay, so that's why I came up with this unique concept called chord codes based on integer notation. But we call it chord codes. We've been teaching this for years now. All right, what I'm going to do is close my eyes and pick a random note on my keyboard. So I happen to land at G. Let's pull this up an octave just so it's not so low. And let's say you want to make the minor chord. So this is the most common chord you hear in hip hop, the minor chord. The chord code, which you guys can get the chord code chart for free if you go to busyworksbeats.com/FL Studio. You can download it straight to your phone and load it up as a picture. So basically the chord code for a minor chord is 037. Okay, what I mean by 0 is that this is the point of rest. There's no distance from this point. And then we count up the keyboard. 1, 2, 3. Add that note. 4, 5, 6, 7. Add that note. Play all those together. You always get a minor chord no matter what. Okay, so that's the cool part about this is you can create chords without any scale, without knowing flat fifths, sharp fifths, you know, all the terminology. You can get straight to making chords. Okay, so let me show you guys some more magic here. Let's say you want to make a lush chord. So here's where we get into the extended chords, they're called. The chord code for a minor ninth chord is 0, 3, 7, 10, 14. But I'll show you the secret of not needing to memorize all those numbers. So let's map that out. 0 is our root note. We're going to count up 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Add all these notes together. You get a minor ninth chord all of the time, no matter where you are on the keyboard. That will always be a minor ninth chord because every chord has a chord DNA that I call chord codes. I study biology in university and we study DNA a lot in genetics. And I could tell you that everything has its signature. The same way that chords have their signature, and that's what it is. These are called chord codes. I call them chord codes. Now let's get a little more advanced. Okay, so here's where we're going to go from the beginner stuff to advanced, and then we'll bring it back, okay? So how do we know how to, make this without memorizing all these numbers? What we need to understand is that the root note is the beginning of a chord. Okay, now what really makes a chord, here, let me not jump too far ahead. We have the root note, and then let's count up 7 notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This creates what's called the perfect fifth. The perfect fifth always harmonizes with the root note. In jazz theory, think of these like twin tones, okay? Even though they're not playing the same notes, they're basically considered one and the same. Okay, now what separates a chord type is the middle note in between these notes. For the most part. So this is 0, 1, 2, 3. That's a minor triad. 0, 3, 7. Now what happens if I change this to 0, 4, 7? Now we have a major chord. What happens if I, change this to 0, 2, 7? Now we have a suspended second chord. What if I change it to 0, 5, 7? Now we have a suspended fourth chord. Okay, so we can basically just change the note in the middle to create different chord types, different triads. I can go deeper teaching you guys things like diminished chord, which is 0, 3, 6, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They're all 3 notes away from each other. The diminished chord extensions used for transitions and passing chords. We also have something called 0, 4, 8, which is the augmented chord. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That creates an augmented chord. Great for like, passing chords and different things like that. So you have the minor triad, the major triad, the suspended second, the suspended fourth chord, the diminished chord, the augmented chord. The main difference between these is simply where we're placing that middle note. Okay, now I'll show you guys some magic here. So we're going to go back to the minor chord 0, 3, 7. So 0, count up 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's say you want to create chord extensions. Okay, what we'll do is we'll start at what's called the minor third, and then we'll count up 7 notes. So the only true number you need to memorize is the number 7, because now we're going to count up from the minor third 7 notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Which note do we get? We get the minor 7th by simply being a tonal twin of the minor third. And if once you understand deeper music theory, you'll understand how we can omit either of these tones, but it still identifies as a minor chord type. That's more advanced. Okay. Now, what is a perfect fifth of a perfect fifth? So if the tonic note or the tonal center here, if we go up 7 notes and we get the perfect fifth, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, it's always 7 notes away. Perfect fifth, they always harmonize. What happens if we go from the perfect fifth 7 notes up again? Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We get the 9th in this case. And that's what makes the chord extension. So in reality, if I take all these notes away and I just give you 2 notes, the root note and the minor third, we can create the rest of the chord type because it's just 7. You're adding 7 to each of these notes. So let's take the root note, add 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We just created the perfect fifth. Let's duplicate this again and add 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We now have the 9th. Let's take that third, take it up 7 notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And now we just created the minor 9th chord. So that's the more advanced way to understand these chord codes. It goes way deeper. Now I'm going to give you guys an in the field, chord progression you could use. It's called a 2-5-1, but in reality, people are a little bit lazy when they call it 2-5-1. It should be called the 2nd, 5th, 1st, because we're talking about relative scale degrees. That's why I said we're getting a little advanced here. But here, let's assume we're in the C major scale, which is all the white notes starting from C. Okay, so let's do C all the way through C and then repeat it. So again, it's all the white notes starting from C and then it repeats. We can create chords from all these notes. So the notes that we just mapped out are called a scale. And when we're taught traditional music theory, we're taught by the scale degrees. So, in music theory, you can't make a chord until you learn a scale. It takes way too long to memorize scales, okay? And then you have to learn scale degrees. So for example, we're taking the first, then we skip the second, go to the third, skip to the fourth, go to the fifth, and that creates the first chord type. The reason that gets a little tricky to teach is because people keep associating the 5th scale degree to the 5th of a specific chord, and that's where it gets confusing. That's why I teach my chord code system. Anyhow, so let's say we want to make a 2-5-1 chord progression. These are all called scale degrees. So if we start at C, this is the first, D is the second, E is the third note of the scale, F is the 4th, G is the 5th note of the scale, A is the 6th, B is the 7th note of a scale. Now, what happens if we build a 2-5-1 chord progression? So 2-5-1 means we want these notes to play. Let me turn the metronome on. Let's go to like 120 BPM. Okay, so I want to play the note D, which is the 2nd scale degree. Then I want to go up to what's called the 5th scale degree, which is G, and then back to the 1st scale degree, which is called C. Now the question is, how do we create chords from these individual notes? Here's where we can use scale degrees to, take it a little advanced, and then we'll bring it back. So remember, chord codes can go outside of keys on purpose, and I'll give you guys more advanced theory at busyworksbeats.com/premium, where I guide you guys step by step into this stuff. Look for music theory essentials and then move into the music theory magic course. Okay. But here, let's just follow the scale. So we have D, skip E, go to F, skip G, go to A. That's our first chord, D, F, A. That's a minor triad. How do I know this is a minor triad? We go to the chord and we map it out using chord code. So it's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So as long as you can count, you can identify chords. That's 0, 3, 7, which is always a minor chord. Now we want to create, lush chords. So lush chords, in my opinion, start at like 7th and 9th chords, depending on how you voice the 7th chords. Okay, so D, F, A. Let's continue to, build this chord. We're going to start at D, skip E, go to F, skip G, go to A, skip B, go to C. So that's how we start building these chord extensions. And then we skip D, go to E in this case. That creates the minor 9th chord, 0, 3, 7, 10, 14. How do I know this? We can count it out. 0 is the root note, 1, 2, 3, minor third, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 0, 3, 7 is the minor triad. And then 8, 9, 10, 0, 3, 7, 10 is the minor 7th chord. It always is. And then 11, 12, 13, 14. So 0, 3, 7, 10, 14 always creates the minor 9th chord. That's how I know that that's a minor 9th chord. And And again, you guys can get the chord code chart for free. Just go to busyworksbeats.com/FL Studio and then download the chord code chart straight to your phone. Now we're going to move into something a little more advanced called the dominant ninth chord. Now this chord type is built from the scale. In this case, we're skipping every other note in the scale. So if we start at G, skip A, go to B, skip C, go to D, skip E, go to F. Actually, let's not go that far. Let's just do skip G, skip A, go to B, skip C, go to D. That creates G major, which is technically the fifth of the C major scale. I know I'm speaking music theory in ease. We're going to just describe all this stuff and then pull it back to chord codes. But let's continue skipping the notes in the scale to extend this chord. So if we follow the notes in the scale, the next note to skip is E, and that will give us F. So this is a scale type a chord type we didn't talk about yet. This is called a dominant seventh chord. But what is a dominant seventh chord? A dominant seventh chord, let's count it out. It's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 0, 4, 7 is a major chord, okay? And then 8, 9, 10. So that's a minor seventh over top of a major triad. And that's what creates this tense sound. It creates this push-pull effect because we're blending two chords together into one. How do I know that this is a minor seventh? Is because if we go down to D, count it up, 0, 1, 2, 3, it's a minor third. 4, 5, 6, 7, that's a minor triad. 8, 9, 10 creates that minor seventh. So 10 semitones up from the root note is always a minor seventh. And that's what distinguishes a dominant seventh chord from a simple minor or a major chord. It's because we're blending the major triad with the minor seventh on top. Now, what happens if we continue to extend this chord using scale degrees simply by skipping the notes in the scale? So we're at F, let's skip G, go to A. Now we're at what's called a dominant ninth chord. I'll show you guys how to revoice that to sound more R&B. Okay, now let's move to the tonic here. Okay, so we're going to take the root note and count and skip, every other note in the scale. So C, skip D, go to E, skip F, go to G, skip A, go to B, skip C, go to D. We just created the major ninth chord. Now the question is, how do I know to go from this chord to this chord? Okay, in a different video, in the original video that this is based on, I teach you guys the +3 scale degree method. These are not chord codes, these are scale degrees, okay? So if I'm at the second scale degree of the scale, the second note in the scale, I can add 3 scale degrees, 1, 2, 3, and that's my next chord. So if we start at D, right here in the scale, and then we move up to G, that's 3 scale degrees away. Let me change this color so it's a little bit easier to see. Okay, so D, and then we're skipping is 1, 2, 3. That gives us G. So D to G is +3 scale degrees. Now what happens if I add 3 more scale degrees from G? It's 1, 2, 3, brings us back to the tonic. Okay, so that's how I'm picking these chords. I'm adding 3 scale degrees to wherever I started. That doesn't apply to every chord progression in the world, but that's a good starting point. So the 2-5-1 comes from that technique. Now let's show you guys the magic of the dominant ninth. So the reason why it sounds particular is because the chord code is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's 0, 4, 7. That's a major triad. Then we have a minor seventh on top. What this creates in between the chord is called a diminished chord. A diminished chord is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 0, 3, 6 creates a diminished chord. Why is a diminished chord very sought after for passing chords? Is because the furthest distance from note to note is 6 notes. That's the furthest you can go from one note to another note in the piano roll. Once you go beyond that point, the notes actually get closer. Okay? And so if we're pulling the notes as far as they can go, then they want to snap back. It's like going from polar, it's like stretching a rubber band. The rubber band wants to snap back. And that's why the 2-5-1 is so powerful. The dominant to tonic relationship is so powerful because it's like pulling a rubber band with the dominant chord, and then it wants to snap back to the tonic. So that's why this works, okay? And that's why chord codes are so powerful, because you start to understand why we do stuff and not just what to do. You understand why we're doing it. Okay, now that distance, that 6 notes distance is from B to F. That's called a tritone. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so now you guys know some esoteric stuff. I'm going to show you guys. Remember I talked about how the tonic to the perfect fifth is 7 notes away. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That gives you the tonic and then the perfect fifth. These are almost like tonal twins, I'll say. Now, the same thing from the perfect fifth. If you count up 7 notes, you get the ninth. So let's count up 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You get the ninth. So doesn't that mean that these are also tonal twins? Okay. And so what I'm going to do here is move these up a half step. Now in jazz theory, the tonal center or the tonic and the perfect fifth, they usually omit the perfect fifth, or they try to avoid the perfect fifth because it always harmonizes. And the fun of jazz is creating tension. Okay. So we could either take that note out, okay, or we could move the note into what's called an altered chord. So I'm taking the perfect fifth and the perfect fifth and the ninth, because these are like tonal twins, I'll say. We can alter these notes together, hitting shift up or shift down in FL Studio to create more of an R&B. It's called voicing. So that's an altered chord. Okay. Now, if we counted out the actual chord code root of it, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, that's an augmented chord. And then 9, 10, that's a minor seventh. And then 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. In this case, I wouldn't count this as 15. I would count, from here to here. So 0, 1, 2, 3, that's really a minor third up an octave. So that's how you can start breaking down what a chord actually is doing. So now I'm going to get a little more advanced. Okay, I know I've been speaking of music theory needs for the last like 5 minutes, but we're going to get a little more advanced here, but I'll try to simplify it. Part of the lush sound is going out of key on purpose. So I'm going to show you guys how to go out of key on purpose. Firstly, we have our main scale, which is the C major scale. It's all the white notes starting from C. Every major scale has what's called a relative minor scale. So anytime you pick a natural minor scale, you have a relative major scale, and vice versa. You actually have 2 scales in one. There's modes too, but we don't want to complicate the video here. So let's say we're in the major scale. The major is known for happiness, quote unquote, and outward energy, whereas the minor scale is known for introspective, sad, I'll say, energy. I'm generalizing to make a point here. So if we're in the relative major scale, if we're in the major scale, to find the relative minor scale, we're going to take the tonic of the major scale, the root note of the major scale, and go down to sadness. 1, 2, 3 notes. That's all it is. 3 notes away. Okay, and then you map out the same exact notes in the C major scale, just starting from that new point. So it's just all the white notes starting from A in that case. That creates the relative minor scale. So instead of thinking of the minor and major as 2 separate things, think of them as the same exact thing. The question is, how do we trick the listener into thinking that we're moving through different keys? And this is where the 2-5-1 gets has more significance. Okay, so we're going to go from the C major scale to the A natural minor scale. So instead of landing on C major, I want to land on A natural minor. And I also want this to be a minor ninth chord. I'll show you guys a quick technique in FL Studio. You take your 3rd and your 7th and you simply drop it down a half step, because that's the difference between a minor ninth and a major ninth in that case. Okay, so we're going to take the same dominant chord here, the dominant ninth chord. We're going to pull it to E. Now, how do I know E is the proper place for this chord? It's because the dominant chord wants to resolve back to the tonic. And what is the dominant chord? It's the 5th of a scale. Okay, and it's 7 notes away from the tonic. So if I start here at the tonic, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, that gives me G. So if my dominant chord is going to start 7 notes away from the tonic, whenever I have a dominant chord, if I ever want to know where to resolve the chord it's called, I go down 7 notes from the tonic, from the root note. So we're going to take E and go down 7 notes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That gives you A. So that's a simple way to know how to use. These are called secondary dominants because we already used our dominant from the major scale. So this is considered a secondary dominant to move into A natural minor scale. I know I'm speaking a lot of terms here. If you want to learn all this advanced music theory, just go to busyworksbeats.com/music theory essentials. And also look for Music Theory Magic, where you go in depth. Okay, so now we want to move into the A natural minor scale. But the question is, which chord do we use? We don't use the minor chord anymore because now we're in a different scale. Okay, so now I'm going to start here at A and assume that this is the new tonal center. We're going to take the 2nd scale degree, the same way we would in a 2-5-1. So we're going to build our chords by skipping every other note in the scale. So this gives us B, skip C, go to D, skip E, go to F. That gives us a diminished chord, 0, 3, 6. And that's a weird starting point. Okay. And then we skip G, go to A, skip B, go to C. we can do what's called revoicing. We're going to take this diminished note in the middle, and we're going to hit Control up so that these notes match. It just creates a more smooth chord voicing. And now you guys can add all your like sauce with velocity changes, strumming, and doing all the humanization to it. But that's how you guys can use numbers to create really lush chords. So let's say you start from scratch. You're like, okay, that's very structurally, common, traditional 2-5-1. I can show people how to use chord codes to reverse engineer a chord code. So whenever you have dreams and you hear these lush chords and you're like, wow, I had the best dream with the craziest music, what you can do is wake up, and even if you can't remember every single note in a chord, you can map out chords in reverse. So let's say my brain goes, dun, so dun, dun, dun. Okay, so that's when my brain hears. Dun, dun, dun. So let's say, when we're creating chords, we have to assume that the top note of a chord is, I said that backwards. When we're making chord progressions, we need to firstly assume that the note that we hear in our head is the top note of a chord, because we're assuming here. Okay. Now there's more complexity to this, but in short, we're going to assume that these are top notes. Now I'm going to start with a minor ninth chord because I know that it had more of a lush sound. So if I'm going to speak a little more advanced here because we already went through the fundamentals. So if I have a minor ninth chord and this is the top note, instead of 0, 3, 7, 10, 14, we're going to count backwards. Okay. We're going to count down the keyboard this time. So if this is 0, 3, 7, 10, 14, I'm going to count down. So it's 14, and then we need to go down to 10, 13, 12, 11, 10. So that gives us the minor seventh, and then 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. That gives me my first chord, which is a minor ninth chord. Okay, and now let's go to E. Let's assume it's the same exact chord type. Now, when you work in reverse, you have to make a lot of assumptions to make this workflow work. There's no cookie cutter way to go about this. Okay, so we're going to copy this chord type and make sure that the top note is E in this case. And what I'll teach people is take the third and the seventh and try if it's a minor chord, raise it up a half step. And just ask yourself which one sounds cooler. To me, the major sounds cooler. And then let's copy the minor chord over again. Make sure the top note is B in this case. Okay, so my ear does like A as well. So now we can start getting into traditional music theory and ease. Okay. So maybe my ear wants to hear a little more tension here. Let's make this a dominant ninth chord. I'm trying to keep it simple, but 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's the beginning of the dominant seventh chord. 8, 9, 10. So I need to flatten that note. 11, 12, 13, 14. That makes this a dominant ninth chord. And now we can take that fifth and ninth, raise it up. My ear kind of wants to hear F sharp. I just want to see what it sounds like if we hit shift up. Okay, just curious. And now my ear definitely wants to hear C. So what I'll do is I'll take this note and pull it up an octave. We can either, let's see what this B is. Remember, I know I'm kind of jumping around here, but these concepts all build up. So remember, in jazz theory at least, the tonic, and the perfect fifth are tonal twins, I'll say. And also too is the fifth and the ninth because they're both the same distance away, 7 semitones. So what I can do is omit the ninth and then raise that third. And then we can add color tones in between to like spice this sound up. Or to keep both notes B and C, we could simply pull B up an octave and pull B down. But again, it's going to create a lot of tension here. It's not going to sound very good. So in this case, I'm deciding to remove one of those digital twins. And now we just created a chord progression. We don't even know what scale we're in. We don't know what the root note is. We're just playing chords based off the top note. And this is how you play by ear. And I'll even show you guys how to take this further. I don't want to make this video too long. We're almost at 30 minutes here. But let's add C back into the equation here. So this is really a minor 7. Then we're going to make this a major chord by taking that 3rd and 7th, pulling it up a half step. Okay, or we could take the tonic, the 5th, and then pull it down a half step. Okay, so we're not even worried about what scale we're in, what tonic is, or parallel modes. We're not thinking about all that. We're just listening to tone and asking, are we trying to go lush? Are we trying to create tension? Let's try a diminished 7th chord. I'm just showing you guys more advanced stuff at this point. This isn't like to be memorized. Diminished chord, which separates it is every note separated by 3 notes. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. So this is called a diminished 7th chord. My ear wants to hear dun. So again, I'm going to transpose this note so that the top note is the note I hear in my head. So there's a billion things we could do from there. And then with voicing, this could go infinitely deeper. I don't want to make this video super long. Just want you guys to smash that like button. And if you want to take the journey on learning music theory from the ground up, and I break it into steps so that you guys can understand what I'm talking about, go to busyworksbeats.com/premium. Look for the music theory essentials. That's the foundation of everything I teach in music theory in a day. You'll learn Chord Coach, which is my fundamental teaching, which I've created probably since 2014. Okay. And once you learn chord codes, you can adventure into everything else that we teach at busyworksbeats.com/premium. So that is the workflow, guys. Subscribe if you're new. Go to busyworksbeats.com/premium. I'll see you guys on the other side. Peace.